Hi, welcome to another episode of Seize the Initiative. Today we're going to be looking at the Klingon Bird of Prey model from Star Trek Attack Wing and comparing some of the different variations. So this model has been part of the range for Attack Wing since the beginning, really. It's, I think, a former HeroClix model, possibly even a Micro Machine. And as you can see, it's not the best quality in terms of paint job. It could definitely be a lot better. It's quite flat and the metallic look is really strange. However, this is the first iteration. I think one of the complaints people gave were that the metallic paint scheme didn't really work. It just seemed a bit lazy, especially compared to the main competitor to this game, which was Star Wars X-Wing, which was at the time putting out some absolutely amazing looking models. This seemed quite poorly done, really, despite the fact I think it's a pretty good model itself. Now, following this, WizKids actually released Chang's Bird of Prey as another booster pack, and this contained a newer version of the model. I don't know why, but this has only been available in that particular booster pack. I actually think it's quite good. The wings are in the up position, which is seen a lot in the show, and obviously for those that know Star Trek, it's the Bird of Prey is able to change its wing position from right up to right down for an attack position. Personally, I think this isn't the best model possible. The paint scheme is actually very flat, despite being potentially more accurate than others in the range. And I think it really could do with some improvement. And I like to think that I've actually managed to improve on this, as you'll see later on. So next up we have the repaint of the original Bird of Prey model. This was used, I think, for one of the blind booster packs uh, fairly recently. And as you can see, it's sort of slightly brighter, slightly more interesting, I think. The metallics are still there. They're not going away anytime soon. It's almost a gold colour, which isn't really accurate to how it looked on screen, but I like it a lot. However, I've still repainted my version. And the final one that's just a standard out of the box paint scheme is the one that's most recent. It comes out of the Ferengi faction pack and I think the starter pack as well. This one's very metallic. This is almost too shiny. I actually really like it. Slightly sloppy, but I don't intend to repaint this one. I quite like the idea of keeping the Ferengi faction pack as it is out of the box. So this one will remain in this paint scheme. So basically, my discussion thoughts on this model, um, it's actually a pretty good model. It is pretty nicely detailed and really accurate towards what we see on screen. Um, as you can see at the moment, the Chang's Bird of Prey version is actually really flat looking, which I have a slight problem with. But I think with some work, it can look really good. As you'll see now, I'm going to start showing off some of my paint jobs. Um, there's a bit of vanity there. I am just showing off that I can paint. So the first two models I'm going to show of my own repaints will both be Chang's Bird of Prey. So the first one is more based on movie era, so how it appeared in sort of Star Trek 3 and 4. I'm quite pleased with this. It's much brighter in the green colour, which I really like, even if it's a bit silly and very heavily weathered. The second is more sort of Deep Space Nine era, a lot grittier looking. I'm really pleased with both of them, even if I do say so myself. I think it's a huge improvement that really brings out how good this model actually is, despite the sort of negative feelings you get from people, especially from outside the game. So next up we have the two versions of the standard Bird of Prey model. This is the one we get everywhere basically. The one on screen currently is my Burrell version, so I've painted this as close to how it appears, particularly in Deep Space Nine, as possible. Um, this is supposed to be a smaller ship, so I've made sure the windows are quite well spaced, and you sort of can define how many decks there are. The other one is less canon accurate. This is my Cavort. The Cavort in the show was supposed to be quite a lot larger, um, so I've sort of tried to portray that with a lot more windows. I've given it red wing accents over the top of the wing, which didn't appear in the show at all, but I think it's a nice way to easily differentiate them while playing a game, whilst keeping them looking sort of as one, so the whole fleet sort of ties together. So the final one I'm going to talk about is my version of the assimilated bird of prey. This was part of the Resistance's futile OP campaign that came out a few years back now. I wanted to make it look something more than just a standard bird of prey model with some decals on it, and because I had so many of the same model, I did some conversion work. As you can see, I've added a lot more to the hull, painted certain aspects a lot differently, added some Borg style green lighting instead of red lighting. I'm really pleased with this model. It's great fun to have on the table, and it's just a nice thing to have on display. Sometimes gets people asking questions, so I can never complain about that. So I think, as someone who has come from a Warhammer 40,000 background, I'd like to think I have a pretty good eye for what is a good model. Obviously, the Klingon Bird of Prey is one of the iconic designs from Star Trek, and I think WizKids have actually done a pretty good job replicating that in their sculpt here. The detail is actually very fine. It's quite a fun model to paint, which is always nice. Um, and generally, they look pretty good out of the box. And so there's no real need to. I don't think there's a huge need to repaint anything for Attack Wing. Most people don't. I only do it because I'm a bit picky about what I like to field on the table, and probably think more of my own abilities as a painter than I should. But yeah, in conclusion, I think this is actually a great model, and WizKids have done really well. They've certainly improved things. Well done. If you've liked this video, please drop a like. If you want to subscribe, feel free. And I guess I'll see you next time if you are going to come back. So thanks, bye.